The Arizona Cardinals have made their first big offseason move. They made a couple smaller ones. What does that mean for the roster moving forward? And we're going to give you a little damn Kyler Murray appreciation because it's necessary with all of the quarterback pieces moving around the rest of the NFL. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody. Thursday episode of Locked On Cardinals. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Stuff's still booming. Please comment. Please do everything that you've been doing. Thank you very much to everybody who's along this journey with us. Jordan Hicks no longer an Arizona Cardinal. He was released. It'll save the Cardinals $6.5 money against the cap with a bonus hitting about a week from now. This will give one of the better leaders the Cardinals have had over the last 15 years a chance to go make money elsewhere. Bo and I kind of differ a little bit on the optics of this. We'll talk about that. A couple smaller moves were made that Bo's going to lead in the second segment. What does this mean for the running back and wide receiver room moving forward, if at all? And Carson Wentz was traded yesterday. Russell Wilson was traded the day before. Aaron Rodgers put his organization through the meat grinder the day before. It's time for a Kyler Murray appreciation post, regardless of the high school drama that's been going on this offseason via Instagram and otherwise. So jam-packed show here today. So first, Jordan Hicks has been released, okay? There's a couple different ways to look at this. Sure, he was going to be making $9.5 million in the upcoming season. That's too much money for the output that he put out last season especially, but he's never been a guy that's really been an absolute mauler on the defense. He's a guy that is towards the top of the NFL in tackles over the last handful of years, was a bright sight for sore eyes when they signed him from Philadelphia a handful of years ago. I'm looking at this as the Cardinals now have zero safety net for second-year Zaven Collins, who couldn't get on the field last year, and Isaiah Simmons, who took steps towards what we hoped we would see with him coming out of Clemson the year before last year. But as of right now, those two young gentlemen are going to be coupled in the middle of this defense without a safety net now that Jordan Hicks is gone. That's what worries me. Now, obviously, and Bo, you'll jump in a sec, but like this is just the beginning. This is the starting line for all the offseason, free agency, the draft, etc. It's just a little ominous for me because I don't necessarily trust what's going to be coming next.
Yeah, you should have nervous excitement about the idea that, hey, Zaven Collins, you don't have that safety net any longer as far as Jordan Hicks being there. That if Zaven Collins once again shows that he can't stay on a football field and shouldn't be on a football field getting significant snaps, that you don't have that guy playing behind him. But here's where I think that you can be okay with this move with Jordan Hicks, the business side of the NFL, where the guy is going to, you get $6.5 million for a team that is absolutely just cap starved right now. The Arizona Cardinals with the move are just under $7 million in cap space. And now, as Alex kind of is alluding to, is that there's a lot of more moves to be coming down the pike, whether it's releases, whether it's restructures, what it might, we don't know what's going to happen. But Jordan Hicks' production, especially the last two seasons, is something that you could go out and you could pay a guy, around what a veteran minimum would be in the NFL. And there's your safety net. You don't have to break the bank. You can go get a guy out there. It doesn't take away from the professionalism that Jordan Hicks showed especially in his last season for the Arizona Cardinals, where he was pretty much on the roster and told he wasn't going to start, and then he asked for a trade politely. He's transparent about where he stood with the organization, and then just played his ass off the entire 2021 season. I think down the stretch, it showed, okay, Jordan Hicks might have had a better year, maybe not statistically, but you saw it with your own eyes that he was he was a little bit better. He hadn't lost as big of a step as we thought as he did in the 2020 season, but still going to be 30, going to have a large cap number. For me, this is, turnover at half court, 9 players back, and you're just laying the ball into the basket. It's an easy move for the Arizona Cardinals to kind of start to create some cap space.
Yeah, and if we're looking at this in a vacuum with releasing a soon-to-be 30-year-old linebacker who's kind of lost a step, not great in coverage, et cetera, trying to pave the way for the young guys, absolutely. I get it in a vacuum. And I also understand that this situation was put together by some failed moves in the past, or some moves that were not made through the draft, or were and failed, and were needed to, you need to bring in veterans who already had a higher cap number than what a rookie would. So I understand the move to be made, them releasing him it's the rational move for where they are, but where they are was irrationally built.
I think that if Jordan Hicks is on any roster in the NFL and he's making the money he's making, it's just, and that was the deal that, and it's been kind of moved around a little bit since he signed the original contract. But I mean, I think 32 teams make this move as far as Jordan Hicks and where he is in his career.
But there wasn't a restructuring on the place. Like, there wasn't anything. Like, you could add an extra year here and move things around.
I mean, you already pretty much went. If the situation that happened at training camp, I think, was pretty much the nail in the coffin, that there wasn't going to be this goodwill restructuring negotiation that could potentially happen this offseason. So
right, because that was you'll agree with me, maybe you won't, that was boneheaded's mean, but that was the wrong move for Steve Keim to proclaim a rookie who hadn't played it down in the NFL the starter 6 months before training camp, or no.
Look, if it might be naive to be confident about your first round. I mean, you want that player to be an impact maker day one. And yeah, did Steve Keim speak out of turn? Did he get ahead of himself? Absolutely. And Jordan Hicks proved him wrong, but I just don't think that there's a lot left in the tank for Jordan Hicks to continue to prove anybody wrong. It's just, I think you can find a replacement level player to get the production from Jordan Hicks, to give yourself some sort of safety net, that if Zaven Collins continues to prove that he's overwhelmed at the NFL level. But I am excited now that Vance Joseph potentially does not have somebody to put in the game over Zaven Collins. Like, I want to see this guy sink or swim. And this is kind of a precursor move to that, but also opening up cap space for the Arizona Cardinals to go out and improve this roster.
Yeah. In theory, if that whole plan works, it's a good move. If what we saw last year, like, say they did trade him last year, when Steve Keim so nicely of him, after ripping the starting job from him for a rookie who has never played before, was like, you know what, buddy, go ahead. You can request a trade if you want to. No rip. Okay, so, but if they would have traded him last year, there would have been many more issues than if Jordan Hicks weren't on the roster. Right? I mean, I think that's fair to say. Now, we can go back and forth in a spin cycle like that as much as we want. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Jordan Hicks no longer a member of the Arizona Cardinals. What's next is going to be very interesting. Now, the Cardinals did they offered 2 tenders that are going to kind of, the email came out right after they released Jordan Hicks, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if that was coincidence or not. 2 familiar names to kind of a lesser degree of importance are going to be Arizona Cardinals next year. We'll talk about what that means for their respective positions. I hope it doesn't mean anything. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. It's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. Dude, 9 days, 8 days from all the latest odds, contests, and player props. BetOnline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball, man. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you to everybody who makes Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. We are eternally grateful. A couple smaller moves the Cardinals made same day as Jordan Hicks being released. Two familiar names, Antoine Wesley, who had kind of a splash last year, had a couple touchdowns, was one of Kyler's favorite receivers on the outside, Texas Tech guy who Cliff Kingsbury knew very well. He kind of went to him a little bit more down the stretch than you would have expected, even though DeAndre Hopkins wasn't on the field, especially on 3rd and short, Kyler Murray's favorite go route down the sideline, 20 yards. And then Jonathan Ward, who was responsible for maybe the best catch of the NFL season last year, at least in the top 5 on the fake punt called by Jeff Rodgers / Cliff Kingsbury to extend the Cardinals' drive down the stretch. Now, Bo, I'm not even going to say big. Well, I'll say it just because that's what it is. Big deal, little deal, or no deal regarding the future moves for the Arizona Cardinals in the running back and wide receiver.
I would say just between no deal and little deal. I mean, this is just the team holding on to players, keeping a little continuity as far as the wide receiver room. I think more with Ward because, as you mentioned, the big, huge play he made on special teams, probably a teams guy. Really, what hasn't been in the mix the last couple of years as far as the running back rooms goes. So they'll retain Ward at a decent price point. He's a warm body that's in the room that knows both the offense and special teams. And then Antoine Wesley was a guy that, yeah, he flashed, but I think you hope that Antoine Wesley is more in this the role that he was in this past season, not where he was taking over for DeAndre Hopkins, but more where he's going to be a 4th, 5th wide receiver with size, athleticism that maybe gets like 1-2 targets a game. Because if he's getting more than that, if he's at a necessity, if he's getting more than that, I think the Arizona Cardinals are in a tough spot. And that's not like an indictment on Antoine Wesley. I think he's a fine player. He's just like, if you expect big things out of him, yeah, you're in trouble.
Well, let me tell you what. I mean, he could be a Gabriel Davis. Like, if you want to keep people honest,
that's
like
insulting to Gabriel Davis.
No, I'm saying in that offense where you have, like, he's the 3rd option in that offense. Okay, if you have DeAndre Hopkins and maybe not Gabriel Davis, maybe a Josh Reynolds when he was with the Rams. Okay,
that's fine.
Jordan Reynolds,
yeah.
Jordan Reynolds, Josh Reynolds. I went to school with a Jordan Reynolds. True story. So
Shout
Josh
out.
Reynolds. So if you have DeAndre Hopkins, they bring in or draft a wide receiver. It's going to be a wide receiver too. And you have Antoine Wesley, a guy that you have to account for because you saw what he could do last year. I think that's great. 3rd possession receiver, like the new version of Keyshawn Johnson. I get that. Okay. But if you're going to add any sort of, extra expectation into that, you're playing Russian roulette.
Yeah, if Cliff is hanging out in his Paradise Valley mansion and he's scheming up plays for Antoine Wesley,
put some socks on.
I mean,
what are we doing here?
Are you wearing socks right now in your humble abode?
I am.
Okay, all right, fine. Antoine Wesley, like you're not scheming for that, but like, yeah, if he does find himself and he can make big plays, and that's good. It's it's a very low risk move. It's very low reward as well. But you know what you're going to get from Wesley. You should like what you saw from him. What do you have, like 19 catches on 30 targets? It's like, that's fine. There were moments where like you felt like he could have gotten a toe drag. Was that against the Detroit Lions? That he could have gotten a big touchdown there, like a more, I guess, polished receiver probably gets it done. But if you're expecting like big things, like for him to emerge is kind of a vocal point in any like way in this offense, that's going to be a tough look for the Cardinals to kind of spin to a fan base where now, after seeing what this offense looks like without DeAndre Hopkins for the first time in 2 years, you got to get a playmaker opposite him, and then those complementary pieces like Antoine Wesley looks a lot better.
Yeah, and there is one bright spot here. And, a lot of wide receivers are capable of this, but his jump ability and tough catch ability, it's off the, like, from like a college player who's struggling to make it in the NFL to a bona fide NFL player who can jump up and catch the ball over double coverage. We've seen the latter. Like, we've seen that in his tool chest. So, in his tool belt. So at least there's that. So if there's a jump ball, if like for a red zone target, he's a big dude. You can't teach height. Yeah, I mean, whatever. It'll be a good piece for Cliff Kingsbury's arsenal moving forward if he's not a focal point. Now, Jonathan Ward, he and Eno Benjamin would always flip-flop back and forth, being practice squad or being active on game day. I wonder what we'll see from Eno Benjamin next year, if he's going to be more of an integral, like if it's going to be Jonathan Ward or Eno Benjamin, if you have to pick one, if you're having 3 running backs active on game day. Running back room is the biggest question mark, it seems like, on the offensive side of the ball, because there's nobody under contract.
It's not
named Eno Benjamin or Jonathan Ward. So,
well, yeah, just call Eno what he is right now. It's RB1.
Yeah, really. Yeah, de facto. He's de facto RB1.
And if you are an Eno Benjamin truther, because there is a large contingent of Cardinals fans probably went to ASU and saw Benjamin shine as a Sun Devil, and we're always wondering why he never had a bigger role for this organization. Like the exclusive rights tender to Jonathan Ward, it really doesn't impact Benjamin. Like he's still going to be he's going to have to fight for a roster spot. And he's probably going to be that RB3 no matter what. Even though he's the de facto RB1 for the Cardinals right now, but and hopefully has the ability to kind of flash like he did last year, where he truck sticked a couple guys, a couple defenders, and had his first touchdown of his young career. So hang tight, take a couple beats there, truthers. Like it doesn't just torpedo his chances of continuing on this roster.
Yeah. And he's not averaging 2.5 yards per carry. Like there are upsides there where if you need a guy to stick in, it's not like hey, is Adrian Peterson free this week? We don't have a running back, which is where other teams were with injuries and otherwise. I mean, he played for Seattle last year, for crying out loud. Like, so, yeah, this is more of a kind of backroom move than Antoine Wesley, because we saw Antoine Wesley actually be a focal point of the offense last year. Not so much unless it was special teams for Jonathan Ward. So, yeah. I mean, it was just news and notes we have to talk about, because we have had nothing new to talk about regarding player movement, just scraping of social media accounts. Having said that, everything seems to be copacetic now. Kyler Murray's popped on his old pictures on Instagram. That's what we're going to talk about next. Why should Cardinals fans be appreciative of everything they're experiencing now with Kyler Murray, regardless of how the last 2 seasons have ended? We're going to tell you. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. All right. It's the Kyler Murray appreciation segment. We do this once every 15 podcasts or something. We'll take one segment out and just say, you know what? Stop it. Okay? Kyler Murray is a top, even for the haters out there, Kyler Murray is a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. For fantasy football purposes, he's a QB1. And for the last 3 years, he's been top 3 fantasy football. So with Carson Wentz being traded yesterday and with Jimmy Garoppolo still up in the air, is Trey Lance ready? Who's going to be the quarterback in Seattle? There are so many teams in Indianapolis now, there are so many teams who don't know who their quarterback is going to be, or don't trust their quarterback to lead them in a positive way towards the future, regardless of what has transpired, especially towards the second half of last season and through this offseason so far. You've got to show some appreciation for what Kyler Murray's done for this organization. And this isn't a homer take. This is, look at what he's done. This isn't Max Hall. This isn't Josh McCown early in his career. This isn't John Skelton. This isn't Drew Stanton. This isn't, if we have to explain to you how special this young man is, you're closed off to reality. And what we've seen, even though we're watching a young man grow up in front of our very eyes, and he's not perfect, okay? His leadership skills are lacking right now. That doesn't mean he's not going to get better. This isn't a finished product. So just appreciate what Kyler Murray is for this organization and who he could be for the future of this organization. Just need to appreciate that once in a while. Take a step back.
I mean, think about the NFC. Quarterbacks playing in this conference. It's like Matthew Stafford just won a title. You've got Dak Prescott. But outside of those names, who would you take on an NFC team at the quarterback position outside of Kyler Murray? Kirk Cousins? No. Who else is there? Think about it. Think about the conference. Like after Russell Wilson moved on, it's kind of a sad collection of
Still
QBs.
probably take Aaron Rodgers at this point.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is the top dog, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, with Tom Brady retiring and recently you had Drew Brees exit, he called it a career season ago. I mean, and then you look at like what Washington was and how they just scoured, the NFL earth for anybody that can play the position, and they landed on Carson Wentz. It's like you better thank your lucky stars that didn't have to pull off that move. You didn't have to give up what they had to give up to get, in the NFL world, a mediocre quarterback with, who can flash here and there. Like Kyler Murray at his age, what he's already accomplished, where his shortcomings are, and where he can improve. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals are a great spot. And if you're wishing for them, like somebody in the chat on YouTube said the Cardinals should go after Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. Like you want to move off of Kyler Murray for Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. I mean, let's think about both of them played Alabama in the college football playoff, and one of them played really well, and the other one was Desmond Ridder. I mean, it's just I think that the Arizona Cardinals, like you have to appreciate who he is. You have now you're just kind of biding time until he gets that extension and gets locked in this relationship kind of mends itself.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of things I talked about this a couple podcasts ago. There's timing is so important. Like timing in a career of a professional athlete is so important. And the NFC has never been, I mean, the AFC is 12 teams deep.
Yeah.
Like look at the playoff picture in the AFC the last 2 years. Okay? And the future of the Arizona Cardinals is predicated upon Kyler Murray, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's never been like the Cardinals were never at the top of a weak NFC West. They were always part of the weakness. And now you look at the NFC West, start there. It's like two teams don't know who their quarterback is. And one quarterback went from looking like he wasn't worth it midway through the season to, yes, winning the Super Bowl, kudos, flowers, everything. And he didn't play that well in the Super Bowl. And they were legitimately one broken coverage, a zero blitz by Todd Bowles away from potentially losing to Tampa Bay when they were 27-3.
Well, yeah. And if you look at what's about to happen as far as the NFL goes, free agency is going to open up, and you hope that like Arizona Cardinals fans go to sleep like wishing for Steve Keim to give Kyler Murray the playmakers necessary to really contend them, because any player that they're going to add to this offense, like people are going to like kind of peak, like their eyebrows are going to perk up, and they're going to like, oh, that's intriguing. Like Kyler Murray playing with this guy, Kyler Murray playing with that guy. Like the only way you get that, like there's teams that are like, what do we do at the quarterback position? The Arizona Cardinals have that figured out and then some. Like he's a top 10 guy. He's a top 5 potentially type guy. And if you get him the right parts, and this should be the off season of Kyler, where they surround him with the talent necessary, it gets really exciting when you think about who they can put in that wide receiver core, or what they can do at the tight end position. Which we didn't mention that there was reports that Zach Ertz, they are in contact with his representation and they want to bring him back. But then there's some other options like OJ Howard. Like maybe OJ Howard could be a guy that they could bring on this offense, and Kyler Murray could continue to develop a rapport with a tight end in this offense. Like it's exciting to think about, and Kyler Murray's the key cog that kind of moves all of this for the Arizona Cardinals. Like if you don't have him, you don't have any kind of like allure for potential free agents. You don't have anything like, oh, that'd be nice. It's like you can think next level with Kyler Murray being paired with anybody.
Well, yeah, and you'll see that the Zach Ertz thing is interesting because Zach Ertz, he got a lot of attention when he wasn't getting a lot of attention where he came from the quarterback. He's getting a lot of attention. He's getting a lot of touches, a lot of targets, and that's something that some guy may be willing to give up $2 extra million a year to live in Arizona, be closer to his wife, like all these things. He's made money, though. He hasn't made money. Like he got his 1 year, he got his one big contract from Philly, but It depends on what he wants the rest of his trajectory of his career to be like. Because the Cardinals could offer him 2-year, $15, $9 million guaranteed. I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Right.
Like, I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Tennessee needs a tight end. They're going to be aggressive as far as that goes. And, Nashville's a pretty fun place to live too. It's like, I think Ertz is going to explore all options, and the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, if it's we already know that the tight end position teams are viewing it as like, if you've got one, hold on to one. We saw a trio of them franchise tag that you're just like, two of those three were like, I didn't think that those guys should be making that type of cash.
So let me ask you this. So would you rather have Mike Gesicki or Zach Ertz? Because Gesicki was
Ertz,
wide receiver one in
Miami. Just because of, Ertz, what his number will likely look like, but also, like the consistency's more been there his entire career, where Gesicki has been up and down.
Right. And then, you look at guys like Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith,
both
wildly, especially Jonnu Smith, wildly overpaid. TikTok Titans, the guy that I just did a podcast with today, he will tell you that was one of the worst contracts of the offseason for Jonnu Smith. Like, you don't want to get into a bidding war for Zach Ertz, and you also need to realize he's a fringe tight end one still. Like fringe, like maybe the top 12 or top 13 tight end in the league.
Yeah. What's interesting, it's like when you look at the number it would have cost them for the franchise tag, like, do they think that they could get Zach Ertz for that number over 2 years?
Over 2 years. Well,
because they'd be scared, like, hey, we can't work out an extension because he can make that in 1 year what he would make in 2. So,
right. Unless you want to give him a 3-year deal and give him $7 million a year and be like, there's no out there. Like, what the Cardinals need is stability. Like Kyler Murray said, you can take that definition forever what you want. It's financial stability for him. It's stability from the front office. I don't know if he who knows if he wants Cliff Kingsbury to be his head coach. I'm sure he does, but stability and roster stability is important. 1-year deals or 2-year deals that turn into 1-year deals is not stability. What if you know that that Zach Ertz and JJ Watt are going to retire Arizona Cardinals? You don't have to think about it. Set it and forget it. You have 2 guys that are going to be leaders for this organization. 2 less things you have to worry about when the end of the 2022 season happens. Like, that's the main goal. Like, would you rather give Zach Ertz 2 years, $10 million with $8 million guaranteed, or 3 years, $15 million with $12 million guaranteed, and just no, or $14 million guaranteed? Like, I'd much rather pay a premium just to know. Just check the damn box. He's going to be the tight end for the next 3 seasons. Like, I feel like they have to give some sort of. It's a different overpay than overpaying someone to come here like the Cardinals have had to do in the past.
We've got to get a definite, free agent primer tomorrow, our last show before the madness begins on Monday, and really look at some guys that the Arizona Cardinals should target and maybe who we think that they will. That's going to be fun.
I'm getting excited. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. We'll talk to you tomorrow.